संत सरस्वती ठाकुर महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णविन की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। इसका फाउंडर आचार्य श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री द्वैत गदाधर शिवाचार्य गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्णा गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। मथुरा धाम की जय। नवद्वीप धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। सामवेद भक्त बिंद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि 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 बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Swami Tinamani. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Siddharthani. Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tinamani. Narayana Namaskricha Narom Chaivam Narotamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nashta Prayeswa Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya Bhavatu Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Good morning, dear devotees. Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam text from Canto 2, Chapter 3. Canto 2 is called the Cosmic Manifestation. Chapter 3 is entitled Pure Devotional Service, the Change in Heart. And we're reading text 12 today. Jnanam Radapiti Nivreta Guno Michakram Atma Prasada Utayatra Gunesha Sangha Kaivalya Samata Patastata Bhakti Yoga Ko Nivrito Harikata Suratim Nakuriyat Jnanam Yad Aprati Nivreta Guno Michakram Atma Prasada Utayatra Gunesha Sangha Kaivalya Samata Patastata Bhakti Yoga Ko Nevito Harikata Suratim Nakuryat Jnanam Yad Apratinivrita Guno Michakram Atma Prasada Utayatra Gunesha Sangha Kaivalya Samata Patastata Bhakti Yoga Ko Nirvito Harikata Suratum Nakuryat. Hare Krishna. Please chant if you want to.
Jnanam yadapa apratinivrita gunormichakram Atma prasada utayatra guneshva sangha Kaivalya sammata pathasvatha bhakti yoga Ko nirvrito harikathasu ratim na kuryat.
Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jnanam yad apratinivrita gunormi chakram Atma prasad uttayatra gunesha asanga Kevalya sammat pathastva at bhakti yoga को निर्वृतो हरि कथासु रतिं न कुर्यात्.
Yeah.
Krishna.
Anyone else?
Dhyanam yada pratinivrita gunormichakram atma prasada udayatra gunesva sangaha kaivalya sammata pathastvatha bhakti yoga ko nirito harikatha suratim na kuryat.
Jai Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
ज्ञानं यद् अपरिनिभृत गुणर्मयि चक्रम् आत्मा प्रसाद उत यत्र गुणेषु असंगा कैवल्य समता पथस्थ अथ भक्ति योगा को निभृत हरिकथासु रतिं न कुर्यात्. हरे कृष्ण.
Jai. Anyone else? Maybe one more. Okay. All right, so then we'll do word for word. Jnanam, knowledge. Yat, that which. Up to the limit of. Pratinivrita, completely withdrawn. Guna urmi, the waves of the material modes. Chakram, whirlpool. Atma prasada, self-satisfaction. Uta, moreover. Yatra, where there is. Guneshu, in the modes of nature. Asanga, no attachment. Kaivalya, transcendental. Samatha, approved. Pataha, path. To, but. Atha, therefore. Bhakti yoga, devotional service. Kahu, nirvita, absorbed in. Hari Katasu, in the transcendental topics of the Lord. Ratim, attraction. Na, shall not. Kuryat, do. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord, Hari, is knowledge resulting in the complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of the material modes. Such knowledge is self-satisfying due to its being free from material attachment. And being transcendental, it is approved by authorities. Who could fail to be attracted? Report by Srila Prabhupada. According to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, text 9, the characteristics of pure devotees are wonderful. The complete functional activities of a pure devotee are always engaged in the service of the Lord. And thus, the pure devotees exchange feelings of ecstasy between themselves and relish transcendental bliss. This transcendental bliss is experienced even in the stage of devotional practice, sadhana avastha, if properly undertaken under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. And in a mature stage, the developed transcendental feelings culminates in the realization of the particular relationship with the Lord by which a living entity is originally constituted, up to the relationship of conjugal love with the Lord, which is estimated to be the highest transcendental bliss. Thus, Bhakti Yoga, being the only means of God realization, is called Kaivalya. Srila Jiva Goswami quotes the Vedic version, Eko Narayanam Deva Paravaranam Parama Aste Kaivalya Samgita. In this connection, and establishes that Narayan, the personality of Godhead, is known as Kaivalya, and the means which enables one to approach the Lord is called Kaivalya Pantha, or the only means of attainment of Godhead. This Kaivalya Pantha begins from Shravan, or hearing the topics that relate to the personality of Godhead. And the natural consequence of hearing such Harikatha is attainment of the transcendental knowledge, which causes detachment from all mundane topics, for which a devotee has no taste at all. For a devotee, all mundane activities, social and political, become unattractive. And in the mature stage, such a devotee becomes uninterested even in his own body, and what to speak of bodily relatives. In such a state of affairs, one is not agitated by the waves of the material modes. There are different modes of material nature, and all mundane functions in which a common man is very much interested or in which he takes part become unattractive for the devotee. This state of affairs is described herein as Pratini Brita Gunormi, and it is possible by Atma Prasad, or complete satisfaction, without any material connection. The first-class devotee of the Lord attains this stage by devotional service, but despite his loftiness for the Lord's satisfaction, he may play the voluntary part of a preacher of the Lord's glory and dovetail all into devotional service, even mundane interest, just to give the neophytes a chance to transform mundane interest into transcendental bliss. Srila Rupa Goswami has described this action of a pure devotee as Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhi Yuktam Vairagyam Uchate. Even mundane activities dovetailed with service to the Lord are also calculated to be transcendental or approved Kaivalya affairs. Oma Gnati Mirandasya Gana Gana Shalakaya Chakshu Omilitam Dhyana Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantika Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Pada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shcha Shri Rupa Sagijatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhan Sute Devi Paramani Hari Priye Vanchaka Patrubhischa Kripa Sundibhe Eva Chapatitanam Pavane Vaishnavi Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirveshesha Sunyavadi Paschachari Sitarine Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guratiche Namaha Ananda Lilamaya Vigrahaya Himadya Divachapasundaraya Tasmi Prema Raspadaya Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste, Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste, Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste, Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. So, the translation again. Transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord Hari is knowledge resulting in the complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of the material modes. Such knowledge is self-satisfying due to its being free from material attachment, and being transcendental, it is approved by authorities. Who could fail to be attracted? Hare Krishna. So much is being made here about transcendental knowledge, knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what it does and what it removes, and the result from that. And after making the case all in the translation, it says a person who understands what it is about, what it does, the results of it, why would that person not be attracted? So transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, results in a person being detached from the material modes, complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of the material modes. So, as we know, waves can be dangerous, especially when they are tidal waves. So material life can also be dangerous in that leading that life as the all in all will not allow us to get out of the house of correction, the material world. This is what it has to offer. The material modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance. But transcendental knowledge, as Shukadeva Goswami is describing, is self-satisfying. It's satisfying to the soul. It makes the soul connect with its nature more, that nature of bliss, the nature of the highest happiness. It is coming from the transcendental knowledge. Because Krishna is absolute, the Supreme Lord Hari, knowledge about him is also Krishna. So when we connect with the transcendental knowledge, then we are connecting with Krishna, and having that contact with Krishna excites the soul. And when the soul gets excited, we all know that whatever excites us, we don't want to stay with that and do more of that. So when the soul gets completely excited and becomes happy, then the other things, which are the material part, don't become interesting to us anymore. So the knowledge is self-satisfying and also transcendental, and it is approved by authorities. So Srila Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita, pure devotees, they always discuss about Krishna. Srila Prabhupada was always discussing about Krishna. When he went on morning walks, it was all about Krishna. And everything that he sees, he would, if it's material and he mentions it, he would dovetail it to Krishna. If it was a question that devotees asked him, he will answer it but connect it with Krishna consciousness in the end, either in the middle, the beginning, or the end, but he would connect it one way or the other. So he was always teaching it that way. So Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, text 9, Machita Makita Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam, Katayantas Tamani Nityam, Tushanti Charumanti Cha. So the pure devotees, all they are interested in is topics about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes one person lectures, the rest of them listen, or sometimes they have an open discussion where people they all discuss. And in doing so, it enlivens them very much. Tushanti Charamanticha. It's very enlivening. We all know that when we sing the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and Kirtan, associating with devotees at the same time, it is very blissful. Wherever it's sung, you see devotees jump up and down and they dance and their big smiles in their face, and it becomes a transcendental party. But that is a chanting of the holy name of the Lord. So when we connect with the mantra or connect with transcendental activity, other transcendental activities and knowledge, acquire knowledge, it excites us. So Srila Prabhupada is saying the characteristics of pure devotees are wonderful. Yes, they are connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pure devotees think about the Lord day and night. So Srila Prabhupada says, even at our level, and many of us are not at the point where we can call ourselves pure devotees. But he said, if you think about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, according to Srila Rupa Goswami's instruction, you think about the Lord 24/7, you will be a pure devotee. So that is the formula. Think about the Supreme Personality of Godhead all of the time. When people talk about activities, you relate it to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in that way, you will be increasing in purity, until you get to a point where this translation here describes. We suspend the different activities and intrigues of the material modes. We are in the material world, true enough, and we hear things that's happening. We see how terrible some of those things are. The wars that was going on, and now there's a new war that started, and it's gotten a lot of people out to the streets in the different countries, in the different cities in different countries, from one side or the other. But that is the age of Kali, the age of conflict, the age of quarrel. And quarrel has resulted in this. And therefore, transcendental knowledge is the one that's above all of these. So we have work to do in making people understand from transcendental knowledge that we're not these bodies. It is also transcendental knowledge that says in Bhagavad Gita from Krishna himself, Aham Sarvasya Bhavava. I am the source. Krishna says he's the source of all material and spiritual. Everything comes from him. So whatever the reason is that people go to wars, by the transcendental method, by the transcendental understanding, they're already wrong, because nobody owns any part of this earth. And much of the problems come from owning or saying or laying claim to a part of the world. Nobody understands that we are not these bodies. Those that fight like that. So then they give themselves very, 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 very horrible grief. And people are saying, yes, there's ammunition going back and forth, and the people are suffering. People are suffering for want of transcendental knowledge. If the people understood it and the soldiers understood it, these wars won't be happening. The Lord owns everything. Everything comes from him. And he says, the wise who understand that, worship him, and they just give all their hearts fully to the Lord. Therefore, those who don't understand that basically are those in the category of being unwise. That's what it implies. So the knowledge is self-satisfying, the knowledge is eye-opening, and the knowledge makes us behave in the mode of goodness at the very least. So who could fail to be attracted? So Srila Prabhupada is talking about the complete functional activities of the pure devotee. The activities of the pure devotee are always related to the service of the Lord. And so as they serve, different ways of serving, and we have 9 ways of serving now that's given to us. Hearing, chanting, remembering, offering obeisance, and so on. And finally, giving our whole hearts, Atmanivedana, giving all of ourselves to the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada says, even in the beginning stages of devotional practice, where we are taking instructions from the bona fide spiritual master, we don't understand Krishna Prema, love of God yet. We have faith in the Lord, and we have come in the association of devotees. We have gotten the mercy of a spiritual master in terms of the guidance that he gives us. And now we are practicing based on that. He said even transcendental bliss can be experienced. The symptoms of it can be experienced. even in the stage of devotional practice. Do it, don't do it, do it, don't. Why? Because when the bona fide spiritual master is obeyed, then he is satisfied. Because he's a leader and is guiding. And when he is satisfied, Yashat Prasad, Bhagavat Prasad, Krishna also says, when my representative spiritual master is satisfied, then I'm satisfied. This is another way in which Srila Prabhupada defined Yashat Prasad and Bhagavat Prasad. When Guru is satisfied, Krishna is satisfied. So that would go on for a sincere devotee in terms of obeying the guidance of the spiritual instructions given by the spiritual master and serving the spiritual master. And in fact, when it gets to the point where we have a better understanding about what this is all about, then everything the spiritual master says becomes priority. Any task that's given to the devotee by the spiritual master becomes priority. So the devotee would then stop other things they're doing and begin immediately to plan to undertake that particular service. So in the mature stage, Srila Prabhupada also says, the transcendental feelings goes up to the top level of realization of a particular relationship with the Lord by which a living devotee, a living entity is originally constituted, our original connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the way it is. And I know at some points, Srila Prabhupada's disciples were asking him, so how can we know our original constitution, position, the relationship back in the spiritual world? Srila Prabhupada says, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. When you go back to the spiritual world, definitely the relationship with the Lord will be there. It is a very sweet relationship. Everybody has that. But Srila Prabhupada wants us to do the work that would make it possible for us to get to the spiritual world in the first place. Because we're not there yet. We are in the material world. We know it is there, and it is the answer to all our problems. The spiritual world does not give us any problems, just ananda, bliss. And in the material world, we have to go through the hard struggle for existence. So yes, Srila Prabhupada has talked about it, but that's not something to worry about. So he also said, because the spiritual masters are like spiritual doctors, according to what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj explained. The spiritual doctor, a doctor looks at the problem of the patient and diagnoses. After that, gives the medicine according to what would be beneficial to the patient. So at this stage, he said, work on ourselves. We should work on ourselves. And that particular relationship with the Lord, that will come. But in writing the books, of course, he has to make it clear to us that it is there so that we know it is there so we can aspire for going back to Godhead in order to get to that relationship. So, Bhakti Yoga is the only means of God realization. Bhakti Amama Bijanati. You will get to know me only by Bhakti Yoga. And so it is transcendental, Kevalya. And in that respect, Srila Prabhupada quotes Jiva Goswami, Eko Narayano Deva Paravaranam Parama Aste Kevalya Samgita. The means to approach the Supreme Lord is called Kevalya Panta. Kevalya means transcendental. Panta is the means or the process. Earlier in the translation itself, Pata was there. Pata means path, and Panta means process. So they're pretty similar. They're synonyms to get to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Transcendental activities under the instruction of the spiritual master. So Srila Prabhupada says, the most important is to chant the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. But then in another lecture, he said the first thing is Shravan. Shravan, hearing the topics that relate to the personality of Godhead. Kevaya Panta, the transcendental process, begins with Shravan, hearing. And the topics about Krishna are so convincing and they are so sweet, and some parts of it are logical, so much so that the soul begins to be happy. That is, we feel the internal happiness in our hearts. So the natural consequence of hearing Harikatha is transcendental knowledge. And when that is taken up by the whole being of a living entity, then material topics become mundane, and gradually the devotee cuts off mundane topics, has no taste for them at all. So many things. It's a gradual process, but it's a gradual process up, and the only way that it stays that way, because Maya will test us, is to stay in association of devotees. I know we hear it over and over and over and over, but that has to be reinforced because we are always being watched by Maya. And at any time, some situation may happen. And if we ever allow ourselves to think other than think of reasons to associate with non-devotees rather than devotees, we're in trouble. And so sometimes people criticize devotees, and that's why we're told we should look at the positive things about devotees and stop being attached to talking about negativity from devotees. The fact of the matter is, we're not pure. If you're like me, you're not pure. And if we're not pure, there are some things that are connected with our lower nature. And not everybody. And so if we start talking about that, you're talking about negativity. And that changes the atmosphere and so on. And then our own consciousness gets filled with negativity. Then we can't really associate so well. So one of the things that tends to get us is we tend to criticize each other so much. Yes, it's there, the lower nature. If we can help, then we should help. But just to see it and do nothing about it, that is under the category of gossip. Pajapa. So that has to stop. In that way, our mind just filters out negativity and allows in positivity, and we become happy. And then when we hear, that's more the goodness, when we hear the transcendental topics, which is Shuddha is even higher than that. Then we'll be happier and happier and happier still. And then the air around us, I like to get too metaphysical about it, but when people come around us, they will also feel happy. So that state of affairs, then material modes don't really affect us. They don't agitate us. Sometimes we will have feelings of being sorry for what people are suffering, going through suffering, the ones that are being broadcast, especially the wars. And devotees have that kind of heart. So yeah, of course they will feel for those who are going through problems, heavy problems as a result of wars. But the understanding is, unfortunately, there are wars that go on all of the time in this world. This planet is always as a part of it where people are in the state of war. And so for our work, we have to try to broadcast this transcendental knowledge so people know that this is not a place to be happy. This is the place to get out of. This is a place to connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in transcendental knowledge and transcendental activities so that you get out of here. Nobody gets total or honest to goodness happiness in jail. It doesn't happen. We look forward to getting out. So, Sri Prabhupada also uses the word Pativinartha, then Gunomi, completely withdrawn from the weights waves of material modes. And he says that it's possible to be in that mindset of withdrawal. You're in the world, but not of the world, not connected to the material modes, by complete self-satisfaction. And it's devotional service that gives us that. So much so that even a first-class devotee, and we can in fact do that, even if we don't call ourselves first-class devotees, when we're having conversations and somebody is talking about something that is mundane, material, we can answer them, but also turn the answer in such a way that the Lord's glory can be put in, or at the very least, the person that's listening can be reminded of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the overall and the greatest protector. If it's an issue, connected with Krishna. So dovetail all activities into devotional service. Then that person that you're talking to will then have their attention turned to Krishna. And when Sanatana Goswami was asked by Lord Chaitanya to come to, or to go to Vrindavan, which he did, and his brother Rupa Goswami and other Goswamis were there, and they were writing, after Lord Chaitanya taught them, they were writing books, and sometimes Sanatana Goswami would talk with some of the Vrindavan residents. And they would ask him all kinds of questions. Much of that was material type. But he would answer it, being as intelligent as he was, and also being in the government, he knew so many good answers to their problems. But every time he answered the question, even though the residents were expecting the material answer to the material question, yes, he would start with that, but then he would turn everything he asked him about the material problems into a segue, a way in which he will preach Krishna consciousness to them. And that was very, very, very powerful. So in that way, they saw him as great help for them, but then at the same time, he was getting them more and more and more interested in Krishna consciousness. So Rupa Goswami says, the action of a pure devotee is Nirvanda Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Vairagyam Uchate. That means when one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, then the person is Vairagyam, detached. They're just situated above possessiveness. And that's where we want to be. When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time, whatever they get, they accept it in relation to Krishna. If it's for serving Krishna directly, they're most grateful. If it is not, then they say, okay, it's come. How do I serve Krishna with it? And that reminds me of one story, actual thing that happened that my Guru Maharaj told us. My Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Maharaj, told us in a meeting, trying to get us to think of Krishna more and do things in relation to Krishna, whatever the situation is. So he mentioned a situation where they were traveling. They means he and His Holiness Bir Krishna Swami were traveling. They got to a place, the devotees met them, and there were some fruits, pineapple and so on, that other fruits too, that one devotee gave to Bir Krishna Goswami as a gift. And the first question that came out of Bir Krishna Swami's mouth is, has this been offered? And the devotee said, no. Then Bir Krishna Swami thanked him. Now, the point Bhakti Swami made to us was, right after that, he turned to Bhakti Swami and said, I asked that because it's very nice fruit and I'd like to offer it to my deities. See, so he was already thinking, offering to his devotees. Offering to his deities. He was thinking of Krishna, how this can be used to serve Krishna. Although At the time he was traveling, he would be hungry, and it would be nice to just simply have that offered, and then he could take. But he thought of taking it back to where his devotees, his deities were, and offering it to his deities. So that's attachment to Krishna, and that is where our consciousness should be. So, yes, we all start off in a lower birth, Kalasudha Samava. In this Kali Yuga age, everybody is born Shudra. Srila Prabhupada explains what we know. First birth is from father and mother. Shudra Janma, birth as a Shudra. Then in the second birth, we get a father, if we're interested in Krishna consciousness. Our father becomes a spiritual master, and the mother becomes Vedic knowledge, spiritual master, and the Vedas. So after following the instruction of a spiritual master and the Vedic knowledge, then we know about how things that we have to stop. Breaking away from modes of passion and ignorance into a mode of goodness. We begin to develop Brahminical qualities. So Srila Prabhupada gives the analogy of the modes of nature. Like when it comes to fire, there is wood, smoke, and fire. He says the wood is more ignorance. The smoke is more the passion, and fire is more the goodness. So like that, even when a person is in the mode of goodness, he can slip, which means the fire can be put out. But we have to get to the Suddha Sattva, the ever-blazing fire. Transcendental goodness, ever-blazing fire. And that fire can never be extinguished. So when we accept the transcendental or Suddha information, then we can transcend so many things material, and then we become slowly moving towards purity. So for those of us in Krishna consciousness now, we will meet people, and if there's some interest, Papa says, people usually are not interested in Krishna consciousness. Trying to live a material life, trying to survive. But when the person shows little interest, then there's little fire. We should accept it and fan the fire, so that it will grow to become blazing fire, where now the person is convinced about Krishna consciousness and wants to stay in Krishna consciousness. He himself, Srila Prabhupada, did that in the case of getting devotees. First, he went to those who really were in the mode of passion and ignorance, the hippies. But those that came to him and were a little interested, he fanned that little fire that they had so that it grew, and finally it got to the point where it was obvious from their outward activity that they had given up so much of the material craziness that they thought was the way of living. So when a person comes to the platform of understanding Krishna consciousness, then from a mode of goodness to the higher one, the Suddha Sattva, then that Vaishnava is eligible to go back to Godhead. It's called a Vaishnava, and you can go back to Godhead. So self-realization ultimately means to understand the personality of Godhead and the living entities. We need to understand the individual self, who we are, and also reciprocal changes of love between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and us, the living entity. So that's called self-realization, to understand the personality of Godhead and who we are as living entities, our connection with him, and the fact that we have to lovingly serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is revealed to us by the pure devotee, the mercy of the Lord that the pure devotee is giving to us. So the Lord empowers his pure devotee, and the pure devotee teaches us how to connect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thereby become happy. So in a lecture by Srila Prabhupada, this was in New York in October 1966, and people are just listening to him, but Srila Prabhupada talked about a point that was quite interesting. He says, Krishna offers himself cheaply. Krishna offers cheaply? Well, we've heard sometimes statements that said, bhakti is not so easy. But then Srila Prabhupada says here, Krishna can offer himself cheaply. In fact, Lord Chaitanya has done that. But then Srila Prabhupada proceeded to explain, if anyone thinks always of Krishna, Krishna says, Tasyaham Sulabha. Sulabha means I'm very easily available for him. Tasyaham Sulabha Pata. I'm very easily available for him. So then he says, okay, but why? Why would Krishna become so cheap, easily available to this person? Because Nitya Yujaksya Yogina, that he is constantly 24 hours engaged in the service. Therefore, I cannot forget him. So two things. When one thinks of Krishna always, Krishna becomes easily available for that person. And when one serves Krishna constantly, then Krishna would never forget that kind of person. So God is no one's servant. Krishna is no one's servant. You have to oblige him by your love. Not, I want to see God, please God, come stand before me. Just, no, he's not a servant like that. Tasyaham Sulabha Pata. One who's engaged in that way, always constantly thinking about Krishna and serving him, then Krishna becomes available to that person. Therefore, we should work hard and sincerely for Krishna. We should also serve from our hearts at all times. Now, we also should pray for the opportunity. Remember, one of the 9 processes is also Vandanam, prayer. Pray to get more focused in our chanting. Sometimes we complain that we chant and then our mind goes somewhere else. And say, yes, that happens, but with everybody. But prayer helps us in so many ways. When we are stuck in something that we know we don't have much control over, then we go to the Lord. Help us this way, help us that way, help us this way. As a matter of fact, some people go to demigods because they want some material things. Because it says they all pray to him, but they pray in they contact him in the wrong way. You don't go to demigods, but they want something. So we also should pray for the opportunity to improve in our chanting. And we should serve devotees, and in order to develop humility, listen to their point of view. Meaning that we shouldn't take our point of view as the primary point of view, but whenever we're discussing things with devotees, listen to their point of view. We learn and understand each other that way. And we should also finally stop worrying and keep, rather than worrying, reminding ourselves that Krishna is always in control and he is in the corner of his devotee. So there is so much now, every time that we hear from the scriptures, so much to learn. And that's why this says complete and transcendental knowledge with the Supreme in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, knowledge in relation to Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, makes us just suspend so much of material modes and things that happen to us. And then we get satisfied inside, and also we get free from material attachment. And that's what we should be attracted to. Then happiness will come in waves and waves and waves and waves and waves, unlimited. Real happiness, happiness from the heart. Shila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
First of all, I would like to apologize for being late this morning. Like the verse was saying, waves and whirlpools of material junk that is around us. I was just distracted. I was working on 3 different things at once. And of course, and so it is proof that, I have to learn to attract myself to the real thing and work on that. But the point that I was thinking is, the one of the first things that we need to learn and understand is that we are not this body. Also, I feel the other thing to really for us to understand is that we don't belong here and we will never be happy here. I've been hearing it. I've been hearing it for I don't know how many years, but it has finally sunk in. It is a futile attempt. And like you were saying, that war that is going on so far away from here is affecting me. It is bothering me. I am dwelling on children. I'm dwelling on innocent people who will be slaughtered. They've not been, and it is painful. It really is. It is really painful just imagining what they are going through. But like you said, this has been going on. It is going on and it will go on. It is not going to end. And we really have to understand that this is not a good place to be in, and our effort should be in trying to get out of here. It took me a long time to understand that, and I've understood it now, but now to work on it is a whole another. And also, thank you for talking about those practical points about the way you explained humility. To be humble is to listen to others and their points of view. We are so stuck on thinking
our point of view.
And it's not easy. It's not as easy as you had said it. I'm just imagining myself and the conversations I have and how hard it is for me to step back, turn around, switch around. But that is what needs to be done. And if I'm going to sign my letters, humble servant, then I need to really work on it.
That's for all of us. That's for all of us. You brought up so many important points. And Mataji, I'm sure, the class started the way it did, but we look at all of those times where you were there and did wonderful for us. This is just an exception. Of course, we're not perfect, so those things would happen sometimes. And we're wired like that. We have emotions, and therefore when the news just bring us untold suffering with videos actually to see what's really going on, and people trying to bury the dead, people trying to carry children and children crying, and so it's very but it brings the stark, gives us a stark image of what it is like to be in this world. And Papa has said it so many times.
Yeah, we
are in a suffering condition. As a matter of fact, he even gave an example that I heard only about, she repeated to me in a video. It's about it's talking even about those who live in a place where there's no war, and even earning $100,000 a year. Good living. We call it good living. They said, what is the life of such a person? They get up, they have to get in their car, they have to drive very fast to get to the place where they have to work. And then they stay at work whether they like it or not, and they have to work hard, day in, day out. Work hard. Whatever they're told to do, they have to do, whether they like it or not, because they have to make that salary so that they can pay to live. You have to pay to live. We don't pay to live in the spiritual world. We have to pay to live here. And then we call that, is that enjoyment? No, it isn't. It's actually a suffering condition. It is a suffering condition, and we're just managing. And because we're managing, and because we can look at other people and say, well, they're not in the situation that we're in. We're managing better than they can. So we feel that we're happy. But we're only managing to try to get out of it's a situation that could be a lot worse. And paying with our bodies to do that situation too. So, and if you compare it to the spiritual world, I mean, everything is provided. And it's bliss, 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 and more bliss. So who wouldn't want to be attracted to a situation that would get us there? That's what this whole thing is about. Hare Krishna. So thank you for your points. Bhaktidev, I see your hand up. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. I just was reminded of something I read. Prabhupada said, and we have wars because of the meat eating going on, and it happens because of that. And just as a kind of throwing in numbers out, I think last year 95 billion animals were killed in the food industry, just alone the food industry. 95 billion land animals. That doesn't even count like ocean life and stuff like that. Fish, staggering. No. That's a staggering number of life taken just for pleasure of eating, and we all have to pay for what's going on with that. It's crazy. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, it is. It's a matter of fact. I think Shamali Swami in one lecture also he said that in the Manu Samhita, I think it's the Manu Samhita that he said that killing a cow, the punishment for killing a cow amounts to like the punishment for killing 2 human beings. So imagine she brought up this cow killing, and people just simply accept it because by the time, especially those of us here, by the time people have meat in front of them to eat, they really haven't seen the killing itself. They've only seen the body parts of the animal, and they have been also programmed to think that there is nutrients in that flesh, and so then they begin to eat that way. So how unfortunate. We're not that way. We're not designed to eat. We don't have the canine teeth like animals that eat other animals because they're built naturally that way. We have the type of teeth for, and if you compare the animal, the horse and the goat and the cow, our teeth structure is like theirs, and they eat vegetables. So it's obvious, but still, yes, the cow killing, the animal killing, there's repercussions, and this is what's happening around the world too. The repercussions are also happening connected to the wars. It's unfortunate, but we know this and how to get it across to others, and whether they would even believe it. That's another point in itself. Hare Krishna. Yet we should go on chanting the holy name of the Lord, because that will purify this earth. Eventually it will purify. Hare Krishna. Any other comments or questions? All right, so I don't hear anything. Thank you very much for allowing me to do this service. Vanchakapatarubhascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shiropad ki jai.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.